All right. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Fall into OBOB 2025 event series. I'm Julie, the events manager at Roundabout Books in Bend, Oregon. This is our last Zoom of the season. And then, if you're local to us or you have a chance to get over to us, Thursday, the 20th of November, we will have Sandy Grubb in the store talking about her OBOB book, Just Like Click. So if you still have any questions about that, you can always let me know. But you just register the same way that you did for this event and then show up to the store. Just a reminder, we're recording. So if you want to turn your camera off so that the kiddos aren't shown, we totally understand. And then stay muted until we move to the Q&A section. But if you have a question that you feel like you might forget, you can put it in the chat window at any time, and then I'll keep track of them and read them out loud later when we get to that part. So we've got some returning OBOB readers. We've got some first-time readers. This is so exciting. So, and then don't forget, if you are like just getting started in OBOB, we will probably be doing this again next year. So there's always fun stuff to look forward to when they announce the new books in like February and April. So tonight's book, which I forgot to grab off the shelf, is Better with Butter. So here's a little bit about the book if you hadn't had a chance to read it yet. 12-year-old Marvel is afraid of absolutely everything: amusement park rides, food poisoning, earthquakes, and that big island of plastic floating through the ocean. She also obsesses about smaller worries like making friends, getting called on by the teacher, and walking home alone. Her parents and the school therapist call her worries an anxiety disorder, but Marvel calls them armor. If something can happen, it will. She needs to be prepared. But when Marvel stumbles on a group of older kids teasing a baby goat that has mysteriously shown up on the soccer field, she momentarily forgets to be afraid and rescues the frightened animal. Only Butter isn't any old goat, she's a fainting goat. When Butter feels panic, she freezes up and falls over. Marvel knows exactly how Butter feels and precisely what Butter needs: her. Soon the two are inseparable, and Butter thrives under Marvel's support. But Butter also helps Marvel. Everything is better with Butter by her side, and Marvel starts to imagine a life in which she doesn't have to be so afraid, until she's told she might have to give up Butter forever. Will Marvel find a way to fight for her friend, or will she revert back to the anxious, lonely person she used to be? Our author tonight, Victoria Piantek, is the author of The Spirit of Cattail County, a Bank Street College Best Book of the Year. As a child, she was lucky to have a menagerie of pets, including a goat that liked to follow her to the school bus each morning. She lives in Northern California with her husband, 3 children, and a gigantic fluffy dog. So please, everyone, welcome our author tonight to talk about Better with Butter.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here. When we started talking to Julie and I said, I always dreamed of becoming an author when I was your age. And so to be here with you today is really, truly an amazing honor for me. So thank you for being here and thank you for allowing me to talk to you about my writing journey and my books and my inspiration. Um, and let's see if Victoria can figure out how to move the screen. Ah, I got it. Okay. So I wanted to take a minute to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm so happy to meet you all. I'm so happy to be here. Like a lot of authors, I have a day job. And my day job is I'm really lucky. I get to work with kids. I work with kids your age all the way up to high school, sometimes college. I am what you call an educational therapist in my day-to-day life. And what that means is I work with kiddos who have dyslexia, ADHD, or other learning differences. And so I work with them oftentimes one-on-one or in small groups to try and help them learn how to do things a little bit differently because people with learning differences, their brains work a little bit, they learn, not work, they learn a little bit differently than maybe an atypical brain. So, or typical, I don't know what I'm saying. Anyway, so that's what I do in my day job. And then my other job is I'm a writer. And I write books for middle grade. I love elementary and middle school age stories. They are my favorite of all times. And so when I started writing, I didn't want to write in any other category or any other genre. Um, my so I've written two books. The Scholastic is my publisher. My first book is called The Spirit of Cactail County. It's different in tone from Better Than Butter in a lot of ways. It is a ghost story, actually. And it is about a girl by the name of Sparrow who has seen a ghost all her life. And then when her mom dies, she decides to figure out who this ghost is, why she can see him, and goes on some adventures and makes some friends. So if you kind of like adventures and friends and friend story and family stories, you might like Spirit of Cactail County. And I feel like even though it's very different in that Better with Butter is more of a realistic fiction, they have a lot of similarities. It's little family stories, and they're both about girls' family stories, and I don't think there's an animal. Nope, no animals in the Spirit of Cactus County. Anyway, if you don't mind, I know Julie told you a little bit about Better with Butter, but just in case you haven't read it or if it's been a while, I wanted to just read a little bit, a snippet of the first page and a half, I think, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about why I wrote Better with Butter, how I got inspired to write it. Um, and I always like to say when I'm reading this, you this is Marvel speaking. So, this is Marvel talking. It's not easy being a coward. In fact, it takes a lot of work to be afraid of everything. I have to always be on alert for things that might happen, impending doom, catastrophes like terminal illness, food poisoning, global warming, famine, earthquakes. I live near San Francisco, rising sea levels, species extinction, and that big island of plastic floating through the ocean. I know how I sound, but spend 5 seconds on the internet and it's all right there. For every tragic event I mentioned, there's a story to prove it could happen or is happening. That floating plastic island is real. My parents say I'm too young for all these worries, but I can't help it. My mind just goes there. It whirls like one of those miserable spinning rides at the um, parks, a ride I would never go on because all that turning could trigger incurable vertigo, whipping up every possible tragic outcome. Mom and dad and the school therapist call my worries an anxiety disorder, but I call them armor. I mean, if something can happen, it will. That's Murphy's Law. That's what Murphy's Law is all about. Google it. It's terrifying. I need to be prepared. Even when I'm not thinking of global world ending tragedies, I'm thinking of small worries, me centric concerns, things like friends, not having any, having too many, losing the ones I think I have, tests, especially math, flunking sixth grade, getting called on by the teacher, classroom presentations, or way worse, whole school presentations, public humiliations, all kinds. Unwanted crushes, wrong answers, tripping, falling. Let your imagination run wild. I do. The school's therapist says I have a generalized anxiety disorder. That means I'm a free range worrier, like an organic chicken. I basically worry just to worry. I'm supposed to work on it, do deep breathing exercises, practice mindfulness, journal, make fact based charts, and logically explore my fears. But honestly, I'm afraid to. I might discover more things to worry about. So that's a little bit of Marvel talking in the beginning. And I wanted to share some of my inspiration of how I came to write about a girl like Marvel. I think the one of my big inspirations was actually myself. And that's me over there with the fishing rod. I always joke around because I'm like, I think that's the only time I ever went fishing in my life. I'm not like a big fisher person or anything, but I am the youngest of in my family, and there aren't. very many pictures of childhood of me hanging out there. So that's when I threw it up there. But growing up, I did worry about a lot of things. But the other thing that inspired me was my son, and he's over in the other picture. That's my family, that's my husband, and my daughter, and my son, and my two sons. And so the older son, and he's okay if I talk about this, because I've asked him and he said it's fine. But he really struggled with school anxiety. I used to call him my boomerang child because I would take him to school and he would come right back home again. He'd call me like a stomach ache, but it wasn't really his anxiety. Um, that inspired me to write Marvel, but it was actually his inner strength. He really didn't feel like he was a very brave person, but I thought he was one of the bravest people I've ever met because even though he would have these fears and anxiety going to school, he got up every day and tried again. And so I always say, like, he kind of inspired Marvel, but he more inspired Butter because Butter is this little fainting goat that gets scared. And the amazing thing about Butter is that she pops back up again. So she gets scared, she faints, but she keeps going. And that was really what I wanted to write about. The message I wanted to send was that, sometimes we have fears inside, but it's our strength that's really important. So I really wanted to write a book that celebrated the strength of someone struggling with anxiety and their inner courage that maybe they didn't always see. And then also there is the Golden Gate Bridge there. And the reason why that is there is because I live outside of San Francisco. I live about 20 minutes from that bridge, and San Francisco really inspired the setting and the scenery for Better with Butter. There are places that Marvel goes and they and Butter goes together, and that's all in the Marin Headlands. So it's right near that bridge. So really I'm so inspired. I love where we live in California. It's really a special place. And so yeah, so California, the Bay Area very much inspired it. And then I have another inspiration, and that is my goats growing up. I always say I grew up in Florida, which I mostly did. Um, but I was a kid who moved around a lot. So we lived in Florida and also weirdly Maine. So if you know anything about the East Coast, Florida's way down here and Maine's way up here on the very, very tippy top of the East Coast. And they are very different temperature wise. Maine is very cold, Florida is very hot. I am the only kid probably who spent winters in Maine and summers in Florida, which is really opposite and wrong. You're supposed to spend your cold months in Florida and the nice weather and the warm months. Well, you know what I mean. It's supposed to mix it up. But anyway, so I spent my winters in Maine and my summers in Florida. Well, anyway, I was really lucky when I lived in Maine because we had a barn and we had animals, and I had a goat named Jennifer. And Jennifer was really special. And I think, as Julie mentioned earlier, she would actually follow me to the school bus every day. But that wasn't even the really amazing part. Jennifer was like she's kind of like a dog. Like she'd just bounce along behind me. But every day she'd be waiting for me when I got home from school at the school bus as if she could tell time. And if I had a bad day at school or I don't know, anything happened, I just would see her put my hands in her fur and just all that stress and anxiety would drain away. So I kept trying to put a goat in books. And so I was kept writing all these stories and I had a goat, and the goat always was like a little side character. Like how Disney princesses always have like their little side pet, like Moana has Hey Hey, and Tangled. She has the little like I forget the lizard's name, but like the little lizard guy. I kept trying to put Jennifer in with characters as a side character. And I was working on this book about a girl with anxiety. And my editor said to me, she's like, "Hey, have you ever considered doing a mashup and putting those two together?" And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And my goat, Jennifer, she was just a normal old goat. She wasn't a fainting goat, but then I turned Butter into a fainting goat because she mirrored Marvel's anxiety. So I thought that was really nice. So that is my other inspiration. And if you've read the book, you know that butter is an emotional support animal. Um, and if you know anything about emotional support animals, or you don't, emotional support animals are animals that can be any creature that provides their owner comfort. In San Francisco, we even have an emotional support pig. Her name is Lulu. She has her own website. She often wears Hawaiian leis, and she goes to the airport a lot. So if people go to the airport and they're feeling anxiety, Lulu like goes and visits them, and she calms people down. So an emotional support animal can be any animal. Um, but Butter is not, so she's an emotional support animal, but she's not a service animal. As much as Marvel wants her to be a service animal in the book, she is not a service animal. And service animals are really amazing. They have to do a specific job. They're trained, they're really highly trained. They do things like they can pull a wheelchair, they can blind people who are, they can guide people who are blind, alert the deaf, they can give medication, they can remind people to take their medication. And the other really cool thing about service animals is I think they are working on trying to train service animals to help people with severe food allergies to smell out foods that might have them. So that is just like, animals are such a gift to us in our lives. So like this is just another way that animals give to humans. And maybe you can help me, Julie, too. I'm going to give you a little test now because there's, you can see a little timeout for a little brain quiz. There are only two types of animals that can be service animals. And I'm wondering if anyone here has any guesses of which two animals can be service animals.
Okay, I see a couple of hands up. Why don't you put your guesses in the chat so we can all kind of see everybody's
Perfect.
guesses kind of at once? I think the majority of us know that one is a dog.
One is a dog.
So
You are
what are
right.
your other guesses? What other animal could be trained to be a service animal? I love that someone said cat, but have you really ever tried to train a cat? You can train
This
them on
is
very small things, in my opinion, but on bigger things, they are stubborn. Is it a
cats have a
horse?
mind. Did someone guess horse? A
Is
very
it a horse?
specific. It is a horse. It is a, let me get down here.
Somebody said
Ta-da.
mini horse.
It is a
Oh,
miniature horse. It's a miniature horse, which I find
love that.
so fascinating and so amazing. Um, and so, of course, I had to do some research about service animals and learned a lot about miniature horses. I'm also a massive horse girl. I love horses. Yeah, someone else too. I see you. Yes, me too. Horses, they rock. Um, yeah, miniature horse. And the great thing about horses is they have very long lives. So horses can be with their handler for a really long time. Do you know that I watched an interview of a woman who has a miniature horse as a service animal, and it even flies with her on planes, sits next to her in the seats. So, like, my ideal travel day is to meet Lulu as I'm getting on the plane and sit next to the horse and I'm like, this will be my dream travel event ever, is to have that. Anybody else like wants to see Lulu and the support horse? Yeah, it would be amazing. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. I think so animals do so much for us, and for Marvel, they were really important for her. Um, I'd like to take a moment, if you don't mind, and share just a little bit about my writing journey and how became a writer. I think I told you when I first started that I work with kids who have dyslexia, and ADHD and other learning differences. So I actually am dyslexic myself. And growing up, it took me a really, really long time to learn how to read. I ended up having to go to a special class to learn how to read. I don't even remember the reading teacher's name, but she is my fairy godmother, angel, just person who taught me how to read. And at the time I didn't even know what she was doing, but now of course I know how to do something similar. but she taught me how to read, and it took me a long time, but slowly by slowly I got better at reading. And I still remember, and I usually bring it, and I'm so sorry I forgot to bring it tonight. I have my childhood copy of the first book I ever read on my own, and that was Ferdinand the Bull. Has anyone ever read Ferdinand? We can, yes, beautiful book. It's about a little bull who loves to sit and watch, like smell the flowers, and they try to send him to the bull rings. In case you haven't read it, there's a movie, but the book is really sweet and nice. But I was so excited because the text is really big. I like to share it because I probably read that book when a lot of people were reading much more complex books. But that the text is very big, but it had chapters. And I was like, I'm reading a chapter book. I'm so proud of myself. And from that moment on, I never wanted to stop reading. Reading became such an important part of my life. Going to stories and listening to stories, going to magical places. And so I I just love stories. And then one summer, I got to read the Chronicles of Narnia with my sister. We shared them. She read it. She's older. She read them first, and then she would pass them to me. It's like a series of books about kind of magical land. And that summer, I decided I wanted to be a writer, but I didn't think I was smart enough to be a writer because I had dyslexia and I didn't spell very well. And for some reason in my mind, I thought if you can't spell well, you can't be a writer. I want to tell you that is not true. Um, and you can learn how to spell, and there's other things. But anyway, so for a long, long time, I felt like that. Like so long, I grew up and had my own children. That's how long it took me to get enough confidence. And when I had my own children, I decided to go back to grad school and learn how to write. um and grad school is like you go to like elementary, middle, high school, college, and then you go to more college. It's like 3 more years. And while I was there, I wrote my first book called The Spirit of Cactus County, and that is this book right here. That was the first one I wrote. Because I was learning how to write, I rewrote that book probably more than 20 times. You can't really see it here, but so this is what a book looks like when it comes out, it's like not very big. This is what that same novel looks like in manuscript form. So this is all the pages. So like if you print it out, I did it on like my computer and you print it out. This is like 330 pages. This is what that looks like. I rewrote this probably 20 times, all these pages 20 times. So it took me a long time. I'm like the slow study. I'm the tortoise. Like I'm like, it's gonna take me a long time to read, but I'm gonna get there. It's gonna take me a long time to learn how to write. I'm gonna get there. Um yeah, but that and then that got published by Scholastic, and then I got the opportunity to write Butter with Butter. So this one took me 10 years to write. Um, and I know we have a teacher on here, so I'm going to say this for you because I wonder if you teach like writing. This one took me 6 months. And the big difference I will say between these two is one I outlined and planned, and this one I outlined and planned. This one I just, started writing and just kept going. So for my teachers out there, if you're teaching the writing process and you want people to outline, I'm your poster child for outlining. So, yeah, that's a little bit of my story, my journey, my inspiration, and I'd love to open it up to questions if you all have any questions. And I have like a little questions, but I can stop my screen share now if so I can see all your faces. Hi.
Excellent. Thank you. We definitely had some fun in the chat. We got a couple. May says that Better with Butter is her favorite book of the
Oh,
OBOB competition. So
thank
that's
you.
awesome. Someone did guess a bearded dragon or a ferret as an emotional support, and that would be awesome. You can train ferrets pretty well, actually. Um, and they're kind of funny. I do see a couple of hands up, so let's start with that. Sunny, it looks like you have a question. Go ahead and ask it.
What do you do when you get stuck writing a book?
That is such a good question. And it kind of depends. I will answer that by telling you what I do to try and stop myself from getting stuck. The first thing I want to share with you, Sunny, is um, don't be so worried about like sometimes if you start being really worried about your words that you're writing down and start worrying that someone's like looking over your shoulder or they're judging your words, that will definitely get you stuck when you're writing. So what I try to do a lot is I do what I call like fast drafting. So I write as fast as I can and I don't worry about anything that I write down. And so my goal is just to write down even the most silly, ridiculous stuff that comes in my head. I put it down on paper because you know what I often find is like when I go back later, it's not so bad. It's so sometimes if you worry about what you're writing down, that can get you stuck. And then the other thing that I do, like if I'm writing a big project, is when I finish or when I need to take a break, I'll write down a little note about what I'm going to do next. So, like, maybe I'm working on a chapter and I'm like, oh, in the next chapter, the book I'm working on right now, I'll be like the next chapter, my main character, whose name is Poppy, which is actually ironically the same name as my dog, but Poppy, gets to meet her new best friend. So I write it down so I know what's coming next because there's nothing scarier than a blank page. That is like the scariest thing, staring at that blinking cursor, looking down, and you have your pencil ready. So, yeah. So don't worry too much. Just write anything. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Our next hand up was Sharon. Go ahead and ask your question. Oop, did we lose it? Wait.
My question is his in the book Hook when during rehearsals, why were they
Yeah.
laughing before Mercedes came over?
I I need to remember what part of the book that was. Can you remind me a little bit more about what was happening?
Um,
So they're rehearsing and who was
yeah,
laughing?
um, Marvel and Addie, he when they were practicing their lines away from the main group.
Oh, they're just laughing because have you ever been done in a performance and you just get the giggles? It's never
I
happened to you. So a lot of times when you're like performing or something, or have you ever been hanging out with a friend or a family member and you just can't stop laughing, like you just find something so funny and you just can't stop laughing? That's sort of what happens to them in that moment. They just can't control themselves. They're just kind of laughing and they're just being friends and having a good time when they are supposed to be serious.
I had some friends that used to try and do that to me on purpose because
Yeah,
I would get
exactly.
the giggles. We do have a question in the chat, and this is always a hard one for authors, but it's who is your favorite character?
In my own or in like other writing?
I think in Better Than Butter or Better with Butter.
Oh,
I think in that one.
that's really hard. Well, I mean, I kind of have to say Marvel, I guess. I don't know. That's really hard one. I This sounds really weird, but I also really like Principal Hugs. I mean, she's like, she's not so nice or anything, but she's really fun to write because there's nothing more fun than writing a mean character. Like they're a ball to kind of write, and I feel like she redeems herself at the end.
We're going to ask that uh, guest, I just put it in the chat, of who their favorite character is
Ooh,
while we have Margot ask their question. Margot, go ahead.
Um, were any of your other books ever chosen for OBOB?
no, this is my first time. I'm so excited and completely honored. Yeah, no. I'm trying to think. Spirit of Cocktail County was on a few state lists, but not OBOB.
So, those of you who have done OBOB before, or I guess maybe if you haven't, this is really good. When we get, I think it actually is happening right now, and they close it down by the end of the year, but you can nominate books. So your parents can help you. There's a form on the OBOB website because that's how they determine it is they get people in the public to you kind of have to explain why, like, they want books that are going to show you something different, or a different character's or person's perspective on the world. But that's like the event that we have next week with Sandy Grubb. She, like, her number one, she was like, if I can make it to OBOB, and then somebody put her book in it and she's on OBOB. So you guys can actually suggest books that you love that could be chosen for the next year, and it's pretty cool. Sunny has your hand up again. Go ahead.
What made you want to become an author?
That's a good question. I think it's just I love stories so much. I wanted to tell them myself. I don't know why necessarily. It's just I wanted to share them. I wanted to write good stories, and I love words, honestly. Like, I really love words, and I love putting words together and working with them. Yeah. Do you want to be an author?
I think it's really helpful if you want to, like, when you read more, you'll get more ideas of things that maybe you want to write about too.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that's really important for authors, is to keep being a reader, because it kind of helps you think of other things that maybe you would have done, and then you can write a different story. And one of the things we've talked about with one of our authors, I think it was, I'm forgetting who it was now, but the idea was, if you didn't like the ending of a book, or if you wanted more to happen, you should try writing what would happen next to the characters, like what you would like to see happen with them. It's called fan fiction. It's a whole different thing. But it's really fun to kind of think about what you would have the characters do. Um,
I love that.
yeah, we've got another hand up for Sharon. Go ahead and ask your question.
Um, Wait, I forgot what I was gonna say.
Okay, we can come back, or if you remember it and want to put it in the chat, if that's easier. We do have a question in the chat right now. They're asking, is your job with your students similar to the school counselors in the book?
Oh, that's a great question. No, actually, even though my job has the word therapist in it, I'm not a therapist like in the book. Like, I don't like sit and talk with people. I'm more like a physical therapist. So I don't know of any, or like an occupational therapist. So it's used kind of in that way. So someone who, my specialty is education. So I mean, although I try to be really supportive of kids, and, I want to help them, um, feel better about education. My specialty is like deep in education and how children learn. So I'm different from Mr. M in the book, but he is inspired by my son's school therapist and the therapist that we've known throughout our time. I mean, it's kind of to honor those mental health care workers that just do so much for us and help us, when we need something. Yeah, it's like a great
Absolutely.
question.
Yeah. All right, Sharon, it looks like maybe you've got your question again. Go ahead.
Why does Jamie hate her so much?
Well, so, he's in the book, he's very unhappy. He's going through his own stuff, and so he's just sort of taking it out on Marvel at the time. When you write books, you kind of got to have bad guys. So, um, he's sort of my bad guy in there. But he's just going through some hard stuff himself. So he actually has a pretty good heart. He just need to uncover it. He's trying to find his way of being.
I've got a quick question I want to ask, and then we'll get
Yeah.
to another one from our guests. How did you pick Marvel's name? Because not
Oh,
only, as we were talking, it's pronounced like the Marvel comic books, but it
yeah.
also, if it's spelt LE, when you marvel at something, it you're wondering about it. It's you don't understand, like the definition of that word is interesting. So why'd you pick that?
Um, well, I picked her name because I wanted her to have a name that was the opposite of how she felt. Like she did not feel like a marvel. She does not feel like she's brave and strong. She feels kind of the opposite of that. And I'll actually share a little secret publishing story here about the name. My editor's boss did not want me to keep the name Marvel in the book. And my editor said, listen, I don't know, marketing, we don't feel like it's like a good name for her to have. But I really like in my, when I start writing, my characters just start talking to me. And she just sort of started talking to me as this kid who was named Marvel. Like, in my head, she just, um, was named this thing that was sort of ironic for her. So it means like she was the opposite of what it had. And then when I gave it to my editor, she was like, well, we should change the name. And I said, okay, I agree. I'll change the name. I said, but she's so defined in my head like this. I'm just going to write the manuscript. And then when I get to the end, we'll just do a search and find and I'll just change the name to something else. But I can't not write her like this. And then by the time I got to the end of the book, they let me keep her name. So one.
It's so funny what editors and publishers will focus on. Yeah.
Yes.
All
Yeah.
right, Sunny, I know you had your hand up, and then we'll do one of the questions in the chat. So, Sunny, go ahead.
Why did you make Marvel's dad a soldier?
Oh, yeah. Well, for several reasons. One is because my grandfather was a Navy guy, and it was a way for me to honor what his service and the service. I also wanted Marvel's dad to have a job that contrasted against her. So he's a hero, she's not. And then also, I wanted him to have a job that would take him away and make it impossible for her to get to him, because as part of her journey, she needed her dad to kind of go away from her. So um, I shipped him out to sea. Writers, we like to get parents out of the way. So I needed to ship him out into the ocean so that Marvel could have her story.
And that can cause kids a lot of anxiety, even if
Yes.
they don't realize it. So, I'm wondering if any of you have parents that have a job that might be a little dangerous. My dad is a police officer. He's retired
Um,
now, but I can remember as a kid being anxious that he might get hurt while he was at work, or just something could happen because he's driving his car really fast to go get somewhere, and you just never know. And I definitely have anxiety still as an adult. And I think that's correlated quite a bit. Um,
yeah.
yeah, when we can't control things, we definitely can get anxious. All right, let's see. The question in the chat I want to get to just really quick is there, we just want to know how to pronounce your last name because sometimes that gets
Oh,
asked.
okay. So it is being recorded, but I'll say this anyway. So this is the name I'm married into, so I'm not super attached. So if you don't say it right, I don't really care. But the way we say it is Tech, and it is Polish. The thing I love about my last name is that it also is my children's name and my husband's name, and I love all those people. But it also means Friday in Polish. So basically, you can call me Victoria Friday or Girl Friday, but Tech actually literally means Friday. So it's Tech, like it's like peon and then tech.
That is fun. All right, we've got another hand raised. Margot, go ahead and ask your question.
Won't butter just poop all over the place?
That is a good question. And this is where we get to be creative as authors. And just like characters never go to the bathroom in books, goats don't have to go to the bathroom. But yes, if you had a goat living in your house, which actually Jennifer did live in my house when she was a baby. My mom rescued her actually from a farmer who wasn't taking good care of her, and she lived in my kitchen for almost 3 months until she got big enough and well enough, and I bottle fed her. But yes, they will go to the bathroom just like a rabbit if you let a rabbit hop around your house. But it's not to go too deep into poop, but goat poop is very similar to rabbit poop. It's just like little pellets, and they're vegetarian. So, you know, if it was there, it could just be like swept up with a little broom or whatever. But yeah, that's the great thing about imaginary goats. They don't actually have to go to the bathroom.
Well, and that could be one of the reasons why a family would say we can't keep this animal because that is a lot to take care of if you don't have the outside space or the right climate. Um,
Exactly.
Sydney, you have your hand up. Go ahead and ask your question.
Um, how did you figure out to name Butter for the goat?
Oh, um, so around that time, my youngest, and gosh, I hope my family never watches any of this because I'm telling all kinds of family secrets. I'm just joking. He loved butter at the time, so one of our friends nicknamed him Butter. So they were just joking around and calling him Butter, and I guess that just stuck in my head a little bit. And then also, I really wanted her to have a cute name, and I kept thinking Buttercup. But I was like, that's a cow. So I just took the cup part off and she just became butter. I don't know. I thought it was kind of cute though.
That is fun. All right, Sunny, it looks like you've got another question. Go ahead.
Why did you make Butter eat a math book when it could have been like a history or a arts or
Oh, well, I'm sort of like I love history. So I wouldn't let her eat a history book, but math, I'm okay with that. Anybody else would rather have her eat history or science rather than math?
I
You
would
can,
vote
as
math. Yeah,
math. Well, and in your fan fiction, you could just write, she could eat whatever you needed her to eat.
right.
So Butter can eat whatever book you don't feel like taking to school.
She could eat your homework so that you don't, yeah, so that you don't have it the next
Yeah,
day.
everybody's like, yes, yes,
Right?
yes.
Yeah. I have a cat that likes to eat paper, so that could
Oh, really?
actually happen. Yeah, I have if you leave certain things out on the dining room table, I have a cat that will chew on them. She's kind of a weirdo. All right, I see a hand raised from the name is Chris Wilson. Go ahead and ask your question.
um are any other characters in the book based off real people?
So I think everybody in the book is sort of like, I think a lot of writers do this. They become mashups of like everybody you know. So even though uh Marvel was very inspired by my son, he and the goat inspired by my own goat, they become like a mashup of a lot of different traits of people you know. So yeah, there are a lot of inspirations. Actually, I feel like at the time when I was writing, my son had a really, really close friend who actually moved away, but and Addie's very like I don't know, she was very inspired by Addie. So there are all through all my books, there's a lot of personal inspiration from people I know. Sort of hard not to let your life get in there.
Definitely. Sunny, you're back with another one. Go ahead.
Um, I forgot.
We'll come back. I thought I saw another hand up, so if somebody's got a question, um, yeah. Also, so I know we can have like we have goat cheese. Do they make
Uh-huh.
goat's milk into butter?
Yeah. So
Oh,
you can actually milk goats like cows, and you can make goats like they make all kinds of stuff out of goat's milk. Yeah.
yeah, because I have a cousin that's she can't have cow's milk, but she can have goat milk, like for
Hmm.
cheeses and stuff. That's very
Yeah.
cool.
A lot of people digest goat's milk more than better than cow's milk.
Interesting. All right, Sunny, you're back.
Why didn't you add any pictures in the book?
That's a really good question. I would love it if I there were little pictures in the book. So when you write a novel like mine, I'm not an artist, so my publisher would have to choose to do that, and a lot of times they don't choose to do that. But I would love, love, love to have a book where there are pictures in it, like a novel with pictures. I'm hoping maybe my next one will get to have some pictures, but we'll see.
I think it would be really fun to see what you guys drew if you read the book and then thought of like a character and how you think they would look. I think that would be really fun. I think sometimes too, it's nice to let your imagination run with what you think a character looks like as opposed
Mhm.
to what the author thinks they look like. It's kind of fun to have that openness. All right, we've got another question, and it looks like the name is Evie or Evie. Go ahead.
It's Evie.
Okay.
Why did you make Butter eat the garden twice?
Um, that's a good question. Well, I think probably to just dig home the fact that the garden is really important to the mom and to create a little more conflict. So it just becomes this whole thing over and over again.
Yeah. Well, and farm animals just eat what they can kind of get to sometimes too. That would be
Especially.
one of the issues with having a domesticated goat. Yeah.
And has
All right.
anyone ever like gone to like seen like fed goats or gone to like a place for like a petting zoo where there are goats? They will eat everything.
Yeah. Just up the road from us, about 40 minutes, is a beautiful alpaca farm, and you can go
Oh,
and feed them. It's really cool alpacas because of the way that their teeth are. They can't really bite you, but you still have to feed them flat-handed so that they can grab it. But I think if they were wild, they would try and eat anything they could get to.
yeah.
Absolutely. All right, we've got time for just a few more. It looks like Margot, you have your hand up again. Go ahead.
What inspired you to make Jamie's name Jamie and the whole entire character?
Um, so the character of Jamie, again, like he's just become sort of this caricature, like this drawing of like a bunch of, like just like a personality, not really anyone in particular. Um, a lot of times when I'm naming, the names just sort of come to me, and they just feel right for the character. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, we've got another question. Let's do the one that's in the chat. And I'd love to know this too, but why did you name the school Bayside?
Well, that just actually has to do with it's near the Bay Area. And so it's just kind of a nod to like the Bay Area. And I actually, after the book was published, there actually I think is a Bayside somewhere. I think there is a school, but I didn't know that at the time. But it's just because it's the where we live is near the bay. So or where Marvel lives is near the bay. Yeah.
I was kind of hoping you were going to say it was a throwback to Saved by the Bell for the parents that end up reading. But
Oh, I
that was
wish
just
that would have been beyond my
for
brilliance.
those
That would
of
have
you who
been
don't know, there was a show in the late 80s and early 90s that was set at a high school where they get into all kinds of trouble and they try and skip school. And it's very funny, but the school was called Bayside. So that was what I was thinking of.
the next time someone asks me, that's what I'm gonna say, because that is so smart.
Okay,
I wish I had thought of that.
it's funny. All right, we've got time for a couple more. Sharon, you have your hand up. Go ahead and ask your question.
Um, um, why did you who pick a Tennessee fainting coat? And did you make up the words myotonia congenita?
Oh, wow. That was really well said. Thank you. I did not. That's actually what fainting goats are officially called. That's their like official scientific name. Yeah. Or the
But your
official scientific name of the condition. I'm sorry.
was your goat a fainting goat, Jennifer?
Mine wasn't. No, she
Okay.
wasn't. She was just a regular goat. But then I just sort of um, wanted her to have sort of a mirror of like Marvel's
Mm.
anxiety. So that's how we ended up with her being a Tennessee fainting goat. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. All right, Sunny, let's do your question, and then I think we'll be ready to wrap up. Go ahead.
When you were writing this book, did you think it was going to get into OBOB?
I did not. I no, this my first book I wrote, because I was learning how to write it. It felt it felt a little harder. This one was just fun from like the beginning to the end. And it's actually been on a lot of school state lists. I had no idea. So it's been pretty neat. It's been pretty special. Yeah, but I didn't know.
Yeah. It is pretty cool to see the books, especially by authors that we might not have read before, or like I believe a couple of these are, it's their first book. And so
Yeah.
it's always really cool to see that people like that book enough that they want you guys to read it. So that says a lot about those books. All right, we will get to these last two questions. Let's go, and then we'll wrap up. So Sydney, go ahead and ask your question.
How many books have you wrote?
I have written two complete books. I've written a lot of start and stop books, and I am working on my third book right now.
Excellent. All right, let's have this be our last question. May, go ahead.
Um, So, since a lot of the OBOB authors have like lived in Oregon, have you lived in Oregon?
I haven't lived in Oregon, but I have visited Oregon. I was actually there at Cannon Beach. I got to go about a year ago with some other writer friends, and we did a writing weekend there. So, and I'm hoping to come back actually in March. So, yeah,
That's
it's a
awesome.
beautiful place. I would love to live in Oregon. You guys are so lucky.
It is pretty fun. I think it's actually more of a coincidence that we've had some Oregon-based authors on the list this year because um just because the books are nominated by people that live in Oregon, so they knew about Sandy or they knew, but that it's open to any book published anywhere. It doesn't have to be that would kind of be cool if it was all Oregon based authors. In the past, I know we've had Roseanne Perry on OBOB and she is a Portland based author, so a few of them have happened. So let's wrap this up because this is a question which I think is a great one. But tell us a little bit about your third book if you can.
Yeah, I definitely can. Right now, I'm working on a book, and surprise, surprise, about a girl. Um, who uh who is she has dyscalculia. I don't know if any of you know what that is, but dyscalculia is, a lot of people will say it's math dyslexia. So it's someone who's struggling with math, and she ends up rescuing a California great horned owl, and on her journey, um, she ends up in special ed, and she kind of learns how to figure out, kind of come at peace with herself through rehabilitating a great horned California owl.
That is excellent. And I love that you've once again touched on how much animals can help people who have um, neurodivergence or even a physical disability. We have a horse ranch in town that partners people who have both occupational and mental health issues with a horse,
Nice.
and they can come out and ride, and it just calms them. And it's just, for those of you who are on here who said you liked horses, that's why they do it. But there's a lot of animals that can help people um, feel better about a lot of things in their lives. Um, my dog is not technically an emotional support animal, but I tell everyone she is because she makes me feel better about life. So,
That's so nice. I tell everyone I'm my dog's emotional support animal because she needs me to make her feel better. But no, she does make, animals are so, they really they ground us in a way I think that is really special.
yeah, absolutely. All right, everybody. If you have further questions, you can always get them together and check on Victoria's website about how to submit them. Maybe your teacher can compile some questions you guys might still have. But we do need to wrap up because it's almost 7 and I need to get home and feed my dog dinner. And we have had such a wonderful time. I want to thank you all for being here. I love seeing returning faces and new faces. And I hope that we see a lot of you next year when we do this again. So if you have a book that you just absolutely loved, I think you should nominate it for OBOB and see what happens. I think it would be great if they heard more from the readers of the books that they're choosing. All right. So everyone, please say a thank you to our author for being here tonight. Victoria, thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
if you do make it up this way again, we are about 5 hours from Cannon Beach. I will go there with you. But if you
Okay.
get to Bend, please let us know. We would love to have you in the store. There are so many of our local kids that have read your book and absolutely loved it. They would love to meet you in person. So
Thank you
everyone,
so much.
I wish you all the best with your OBOB competitions as they start to ramp up. You guys are awesome for what you're doing. I know it can be hard, but just keep reading. It is the best thing that you can do for your brain. It just is.
Thank you all so much. I really appreciate you being here tonight.
All right, everybody, have a great night and we'll see you at the next one. Stop.